Hello everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. One of the world's largest aquifers, the Ogallala, is found in the Great Plains and lies in part in the Oklahoma Panhandle. Scientists from OSU and several other universities are finding solutions to sustain this crucial water source. Today, SUNUP's Dave Deacon talks with our Extension Water Conservation Specialist Jason Warren about using technology to get the most from irrigation.
We're up here in the Panhandle just south of Elkhart, Kansas, and Jason, you guys are doing some research on irrigation.
Yep. We're standing on our McCall Research and Demonstration Farm. So what we're doing here is a large-scale research and demonstration trying to utilize commercially available products like aerial imagery and irrigation management tools and soil moisture sensors to see how we can improve our nitrogen management, which improves our profitability, and then how we can improve and maximize the water productivity of the water we've got left in the ground here. Because
it does come down to the water down in the aquifer and using it more efficiently.
Yeah, and so this farm, we're running 3 pivots here, and they share 3 wells. And those wells can produce 900 gallons a minute without a lot of trouble. And that's just, you can't run 3 pivots on it. So we rotate crops, we split pivots up into more than 1 crop on the inside and out, and then we adjust the nozzle packages and try to fit that to populations and hybrids, and that's the same thing growers are doing. And then what Brian Arnall and I are looking at, with some help from guys like Philip Alderman, and I got a postdoc out here, is trying to look at how we can use the technology available on our cell phones or from airplanes or satellites to fine-tune that management to squeeze as many bushels out of the water we have. And we've got, things we're looking at like bubblers out on the pivot to see, if we can just bubble it on 60-inch spacing and just irrigate 2 rows at a time between each of those rows instead of spreading it out, and that increases efficiency. And so there's a lot of stuff going on here.
And with that, you're able to really break down the circle, because you're able to replicate it as no technology versus extensive technology.
Yeah, and there's another cool project. Like, we've got plots out here that are 40 feet wide and 200 to 300 feet long, and those are used for a project where producers, every time the pivot turns, the producer tells me how much water they want or how much nitrogen they want when we fertigate, and so we can compare the 6 producers' management strategies to one another and see what provides an optimum profitability and productivity and whatnot. But it's been real eye-opening to see how each of them have different management strategies, and they'd be real fascinating to see what the productivity is and water use efficiency, nitrogen use efficiency, and then profitability on that. That's what this variable rate irrigation system allows us to do.
A lot of that is technology that can be monitored anywhere around the world, and you're able to make adjustments, like you said.
Yeah, I can change the speed of the pivot, I can change the pressure on my electric well with my phone, and then if I want to change the settings on the variable rate irrigation, I can pull my laptop out here in the field and just click on a polygon and a map, and it'll change that the volume of water going out per minute. And so in these soils, we want to put out at least 1.25 inches, if not more, per application, because the more you put out in one event, the more deeply it can infiltrate the soil without being lost to evaporation. So we try to maximize the amount we put out per pass and minimize the passes without the crop going stress or overwatering the soil when we actually hit it. So there's a lot of stuff going on to optimize efficiency.
And with that efficiency, it is water efficiency, but it is bottom line efficiency for the producers.
There's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of moving parts, and so when growers are asked to use this technology 20 years ago, because it's been around for a long time, it was just a struggle and a quality of life deal where it was just one more thing. And now what we're doing is getting technology that's mobile on your phone, that guys can see instantaneously what their field is doing. And so you're seeing a lot more adoption. And what we're trying to do is getting a large-scale farm to a condition where we can do high-intensity research here and collect information that these growers out here need to optimize their water use and profitability.
Okay, thank you very much, Jason Warren, Soil and Water Conservation Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
Hi, Wes Lee with your weekly Mesonet weather report. Warmer than normal temperatures have been rare in 2019. 5 of the previous 6 months were well below average. This week, that changed as heat problems became an issue. Heat advisories were issued on Monday and continued for the week. Recorded high temperatures were not that far off of the normal for this time of year of 91 degrees. So why were the heat advisories issued? The answer is the incredible amount of moisture in the air associated with the heat. We are seeing relative humidity levels on Monday afternoon that were reaching into the 60s and 70s almost statewide. There are a couple of ways of looking at the felt temperature that includes this humidity into the equation. The most popular is the heat index. Heat index numbers on Monday reached into the hundreds across the state and as high as 107 degrees in the southeast counties of Pushmataha and McCurtain. There is another method of looking at felt temperatures called the wet bulb globe temperature risk. It is similar to the heat index, but it also takes into account the impacts of sunlight intensity and winds on humans. It is considered by many to be the best method of determining heat stress. On Monday, most of eastern Oklahoma was in the highest risk category indicated by black on this map. Now here's Gary with more on summertime temperatures.
Thanks, Wes, and good morning, everyone. Well, we're definitely in the dog days of summer, the doldrums. Same thing day after day, although we are getting a bit of rain here and there. But of course it's hot. It's not too bad, but it's still hot. And regardless of whether we're above normal or below normal in Oklahoma, the summer is generally hot. Now, if we look at the climatology, based on, again, that long-term average from the Oklahoma Mesonet, 2004-2018, we can see we probably have about another month to go on average. August 9th or 10th, that's when we start to see that downhill slide start of temperatures, and these are, of course, high temperatures where we transform from the 90s in July and August down into the 80s as we get into September, and then we plunge down into the 50s with some 40s in there somewhere as we get into the winter months. So we still have a little bit of ways to go before we start to get into that cooler fall type weather. Nothing shocking there. Now we look at the long-term average of rainfall, we see that easily the rainiest time of the year is, of course, our spring rainy season, late April through mid-June. And then we cut down rather dramatically as we get into July. A few spikes there from some dramatic rainfall events, but we can see that general decline as we go through the summer months, and then a little bit of a rebound as we get into the fall months. That's our secondary rainy season. And then again, we decline as we start to get into the winter months. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
We're here now with Josh Lofton, our Extension Cropping System Specialist. And Josh, you're hearing from producers, they're a little worried that their summer crops are looking drought stressed. Let's sort that out.
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to get towards those dog days of summer, and it's getting warm. It's getting a little dry out there. We have had some parts of the state still get periodic rain showers, but a bulk majority of the state has been dry over the last couple weeks. So we're starting to see that effect on the crops as we go.
But are they really drought stressed? I mean, what is the real scenario there? Because we've gotten a lot of rain, significant rain this spring.
Yeah, and almost that, and it really depends. That all that rain we got a couple of months ago almost lulls you into a false sense of security. If you actually dig down in a lot of these fields, we have substantial amount of subsoil moisture. We have a lot of moisture still present down there. Unfortunately, what happened is, as these crops, a lot of our summer crops that were planted a little early, they just didn't get the root system developed they normally would. So even if you have a lot of moisture down low, your crop could be getting a little dry and a little drought stress because it just doesn't have the root stretched down there far enough yet. So the more and more stressed it gets, the more it could stretch down a little bit further. However, some of our summer crops that are a little more developed, a little further along, they might not get as much root growth, and so they might get a little dry and show those signs of drought stress for more prolonged during these really hot, dry periods we're experiencing now.
Well, speaking of that, how are the crops really reacting to this, sudden onset of these, 95, 100-degree days we're seeing?
Yeah, it really caught us. We were 80s a couple of weeks ago, and now we're, looking down the, next week, looking in the high 90s up to 100 in some places. So we are getting that way. The big concern we have is a lot of our crops that were planted kind of early to a little on the later side are going through reproductive growth. They're starting to flower. A lot of our corn is tasseling and really starting to pollinate. Those crops that are going through that point in time, we really have concerns about mispollination or just not getting true pollination into those. Our growers need to look at that because the ear might look really good, but the actual kernels within them, they won't have successfully pollinated, and so you start seeing some gaps or some skips, especially in these big 100-degree days. That's going to be the other issue. Sorghum's starting to go through that pollination. We're very concerned about that. The other thing we see with sorghum is over in the late afternoon, you'll start to see sorghum and kind of start wrapping up its leaves, and we'll start to see growers, kind of take pictures on Twitter and all that about their leaves looking a little rolled during the later parts in the afternoon. That's okay. That's part of what that crop does. It's trying to mitigate itself from those 100-degree. It's decreasing that surface area, kind of rolling itself up. As long as we're not rolled up at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning or deeper in the evening, we're okay. If they unfurl in the morning, we're still in a good spot. At 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon is probably not a good time on a 100-degree day to check and see if you're drought stressed. Go out there at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning when we got cooler temperatures, the humidity's up, and see if that crop is still rolled up. We're really concerned with that. If it's open like we see a lot of these leaves back here to where they're fully open, they're fully expanded, we're still okay. So that's kind of your going back and forth on where it is. Look for that drought stress earlier in the morning. If it's still rolled up, then you have something to be concerned about.
Let's talk about insect pressure now. That's kind of come on suddenly too, the way I understand it. What are you seeing? Yeah,
I was sitting there watching the show a couple weeks ago, and Tom was talking about how there's some out there, and we see some indication of what he was talking about, some of these bullet hole leaves with the worms we've had in some of our grassy crops. But what we're starting to see is we got our first indication of sugarcane aphids in the southwest part of the state this week. So that's something that growers down there, and as they start to work north, that they need to be scouting for. The other thing is for our soybean producers, we're starting to see a lot more of the worms and the caterpillars move into soybean, and we started seeing a lot of stink bugs show up in soybeans. So right as soon as those soybeans are flowering, starting to set pods, that's where we can lose a lot of yield really early, is if we let those foliar feeding insects and those pod feeding insects get at those really small pods as they're developing. So growers need to get out there, get their sweep nets out, get their checking boots on, because it's time to get out in your summer crops. I know it's not an enjoyable thing to get out here in the 100 degrees, but as we're starting to get weed out, it's time to start getting in our other crops and start checking, because we definitely have some pressure starting to build from our insect pests.
Okay, well, we appreciate the update, Josh, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
As we approach the middle part of July, and especially as we go on into August, we'll probably hear from our weatherman those four little words that most Oklahomans really just as soon not hear, and that's high pressure heat dome. And that's the time, of course, when we'll have those very, very warm temperatures day after day after day, high 90s approaching 100 degrees, and nighttime lows maybe only down to about 80 degrees. That's a time when basically our cattle out in pastures are experiencing some level of heat stress. And that's important from the standpoint of especially reproduction. We know from research that's been done that heat-stressed bulls will have a pretty substantial decrease in semen quality and therefore their ability to get cows bred. On the female side, work done here at Oklahoma State University back in the 80s showed that heat-stressed heifers or cows that had recently been bred showed a severe reduction in embryo survival, especially within that first week to 2 weeks after being bred. Well, you combine those two situations and you see why having a breeding season that extends into July and August is pretty counterproductive. That explains to me why here in Oklahoma or across most of the southern plains, we choose to have our breeding season in May and June and have it pretty well wrapped up by the 1st of July, or have a fall breeding season that may start somewhere around Thanksgiving or the first part of December and go December into January. That way we're avoiding this particular time of the year that seems to be so devastating to conception rates when we have those really high temperatures day after day and our nighttime lows never get down enough for the animal to really cool off and get back to that heat stress situation. I think you want to keep that in mind as you're thinking about breeding seasons for your herd. We want to avoid this real hot part of the summertime because it will have an adverse effect on conception rates year after year. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Kim Anderson, our crop marketing specialist, joins us now. Kim, the July WASDE has been released. It's been talked about and anticipated. Give us an idea of what it revealed.
Well, I think it reveals some surprises, but let's start with Oklahoma wheat production. They increased the yield per acre to 38 from 37 bushels. They lowered the total production to 104 million, down from 111. So of course they lowered the harvested acres. Now, if you look at the WASDE, the wheat production for all wheat, right at expectations, 1.92 billion bushels. Ending stocks at 1 billion bushels. That's pretty close to where the market had it. The hard red winter wheat, 875 million bushels, 323 million bushels ending stocks. Corn production came in at 13.9 billion. I think that's above expectations. Ending stocks at 2 billion. They were expecting down on 1.718. I think that's going to hit the market. Negative corn prices is negative wheat. Soybeans came in at 3.845 billion bushels, ending stocks at 795. I think slightly less than the market expected, so that's good for beans. And cotton, 22 million bales, 6.7 million bales, ending stocks probably in expectations.
Kind of some good and bad news for the wheat market. Sort that out for us.
Well, if you start with the bad news, I think the first you got to look at is the quality, and that is bad when you're talking about the quality is bad news. Test weight less than 60 pounds. We like it above 60. It's still acceptable at probably around 58.5 to 59. But the protein level was coming in 11.3, 11.5. You know, you want that up there around 12.5, and so that's the market just. Exports, you need 12.5. The minimum coming into Houston or the export market is 12%, so that's bad. You got the fund positions for soft red winter wheat. They're long, 37,000 contracts. Hard red winter wheat, they're short, 27,000. In other words, the market's thinking cheap hard red winter wheat. If you look at the price spread between soft red winter wheat and hard red winter wheat, it's 64 cents premium soft. That's got to be a record spread. Normally, you know, maybe it'll be 5 or 10 cents above hard red winter. Mostly, and if you look over past years, hard red's been 15, 20 cents above soft red.
So we have to remember this is a world market that we're talking about. How does that kind of play into everyone's understanding and their management approach?
Well, I think if you're looking at the world market, a Russian wheat or the Black Sea wheat, the early Ukraine Russian harvest are coming in around 13% average protein. That's too high for bread flour. That protein will get you strength, and you know, do you want a starchy, strengthy, rubbery cake or cookies or anything like that? The U.S. protein's too low, the Black Sea's too high. It's possible, just possible, that some countries will be buying both Russian wheat and U.S. wheat to blend to get that protein level they want. You look at some good news that's going on in the market. You know, in the Panhandle, it's not necessarily the world market, but the world market impacts our price. Wheat's at $4.20, corn's at $4.40. So we're feeding wheat again, and I think that's good for our prices. I think from a world standpoint, the world's going to want this wheat and what protein we have. However, our domestic millers need this scarce protein wheat, and I think they're going to try to bid it high enough to keep it in the domestic market.
So we will take that news for sure. Okay, Kim, thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.
You know, at the end of a long day or after mowing in the hot sun, sometimes it's really good to reach for a cold one. You know, a brewski, a barley pop, you know, just a beer. But you know, beer has become a lot more sophisticated, largely because of the boom in the craft beer industry. There's been a 14% increase in that industry from 2012 to 2017. So what defines a craft beer brewer? The National Brewers Association defines a craft brewery as small, independent, and traditional. By small, the association means less than 6 million barrels of annual production, which equates to about 3% of the U.S. beer market. These craft beer flavors and styles include IPAs, lagers, pale ales, amber ales, seasonal beers, and fruit beers, plus a broad category of other, which derive flavor from ingredients besides the hops like wheat beers, sorghum beers, and stouts that include flavors from oatmeal, chocolate, or coffee. So what is driving this demand for craft beers over traditional beers, whose sales fell 16% from 2012 to 2017? Just like the food industry has seen a trend for exploration of new and less traditional flavors by consumers, so has the beverage industry, and this demand is largely driven by millennials. Oklahoma, which recently passed legislation to allow wine and strong beer sales in grocery stores this coming October, currently has 42 craft breweries, but that number is expected to grow significantly once the new law goes into effect, which will also simplify regulations regarding the sale of on-premise craft beers at the microbreweries. So the next time you want something cold and refreshing, reach for something a little more sophisticated and flavorful. Consider supporting the craft beer industry of Oklahoma. For more information about this trend or other interesting food trends, download FAPC's app. Visit SUNUP for more information.
How are you doing, John?
Just fine. How are you doing?
Doing good.
Good.
So why don't you tell us a little bit what you guys got going on today?
Oh, we got a little growing season fire going on.
Man, you know, you wouldn't think of something this green that would burn this well.
That's right. You know, a lot of people, that's their picture of summertime, growing season, green grass, it just won't burn. But as you can see right here, we've got it burning really well on that. We've been doing a lot of growing season burns.
So talk a little bit about the benefits of burning this time of year.
Well, you know, the benefits of burning this time of year is pretty much the same kind of benefits that we see burning in the dormant season or any time of the year. You can see increased cattle gains, increased plant palatability, increased crude protein on plant species. Again, wildfire reduction risk and stuff. We're removing fuel, so for future wildfires, we don't have those big problems and things like that going on.
Is it easier to kind of manage this time of year?
It is. As you can see, you know, the flames are, you know, the fire's not moving real fast. You know, we just lit that just a little bit ago, and it's only traveled, you know, about 15 feet. Whereas if this would have been March or April, man, it had already been, you know, 100 yards down the way real quick. Flames are a lot shorter because, again, that green grass in there changes that whole aspect of the way that fire behaves, because it's the old growth, it's the old mulch from previous years that starts the fire. Then it burns and heats up, boils all the water out of the green grass, and then the green grass will go ahead and burn. within that. And so as you can see, it just slows that down because it takes so much energy out of that fire to boil all that water out of it.
Yeah, because like, you know, wildfire is a naturally occurring event, and this just helps to manage that. You know,
That's
it's
right.
good for the land, but you want to just keep it in control, not get out of control.
That's right. And that's the other, one of the great benefits of this time of year is the safety aspect. It's a whole lot safer to do, a whole lot easier to maintain and control. Spot fire reductions, you know, embers blowing out. Again, a lot of times they land in a lot of green stuff, so the risk of spot fires, it's always there, but it's a whole lot less this time of year. And then two, even if we do have a spot, it's real simple. It's not moving real fast. We can get over there, put it out, not much problem.
And the weather conditions here are pretty favorable for it, correct? I mean, it's pretty cool out right now.
Yeah, we actually got to hit a really good day today. Typically it's, you know, it's sunny and it's already hot and we're dealing with fire out here. That's one of the bad things. But today it's a nice mild day for summer in August here in Oklahoma. So that makes it nice to be able to do that. That's one of the things you got to watch out for too, burning this time of year, is just the heat, the stress and stuff on the crew. Not, you know, out here working when it's, you know, 100+ degrees outside a lot of times, and it's even more than that when you're near the fire. So we try to make sure everybody rides, everybody stays hydrated, switch out tasks so you don't get nobody overheated and don't get anybody hurt.
And you do have some resources out there for people who are considering burning during the summer, how to pick the right weather conditions and what to do, right?
Yes, we do.
All right, thanks, John. If you'd like a link to that, go to our website, SUNUP.okstate.edu.
That'll do it for us this week. Remember, you can find us anytime at SUNUP.okstate.edu and also follow us on YouTube and social media. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone, and remember, Oklahoma agriculture starts at sunup.